Greetings and welcome to the Saco City Council meeting for Monday, November 30th, 2020. Call this meeting to order at 6:30 p.m. Let the record show that all councilors are present, including City Administrator Canrath. At this time, we'd like to invite everybody to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please, the flag is presented behind City Administrator Canrath.
Wow.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everybody. At this point, we are up to the general in the agenda, and I would just like to read something under item A, recognizing the passing of Tom Rowan. It is with great regret, that we recognize the passing of Tom Rowan. Tom Rowan, a member of the Saco community, former counselor, and fire department staff, passed away earlier this month. Tom held the Ward 3 council seat in 2015 and also served with the Saco Fire Department from 2014 to 2018 as a communications specialist. Tom was instrumental in developing bi-monthly newsletter and assisting with the fire department's annual report. But his greatest quality was that contagious positive attitude, always entering the room with a smile and a genuine concern for everyone. Tom will be greatly missed. Our thoughts are with Tom's family during this difficult time. And at this moment, I would just like to observe a moment of silence in recognition of former Councilor Rowan. Thank you for that. With that, we are at item 5, committee correspondence to council. Are there any committee correspondence at this time? Councilor McPhail.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First off, I'd just like to recognize the crew from Saco Main Street for their efforts this past Saturday with Small Business Saturday. We had a great outpouring despite the rainy weather, but people were excited and out. And to note that if you have received your Saco bucks, that they are good through December 9th at the participating businesses in the downtown area. So we hope to see you all there. And again, it has been extended through through December 9th. And the Dyer Library kicked off the 16th annual Festival of Trees last Friday night, and it will run through December 30th. The auction is underway, and for anybody interested in checking the items and bidding, the website is airauctioneer.com/2020-festival-of-trees.auction. And you can also find the link on the Dyer Library Museum website on Facebook.
Thank you, Councilor McPhail. Just as a plug for that, I am participating as one of the raffle gifts where I will deliver 2 Richetta's pizzas, courtesy of Richetta's, and 2 bottles of wine, courtesy of myself, on Super Bowl night, of course, with proper PPE and what have you. So that is on the auctioneer site for those to bid on. So little plug there. Councilor Copeland.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I received the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee, or BPAC as we call it. They have an activity update, but unfortunately the PDF came out wrong. So I'm going to add that to the end during councilor comments because I can't see all of like half the page. So we'll get them to scramble and get it over to me in a way that I can present it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilor Copeland. The only other thing I want to let folks know about that is the Farmers to Families food box distribution by Age Friendly Saco. They are running, it's either their 5th or 6th run of this program, and that is December 16th from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. At the Saco Middle School at 40 Buxton Road in Saco, and Biddeford Middle School, 25 Tiger Drive, Biddeford, from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. This is a first come, first serve until supplies run out. Masks and social distancing are required. Again, that is farmers to families food box distribution put on by Age Friendly Saco on December 16th here at the Saco Middle School from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. Any further committee correspondence to council? Seeing no further committee correspondence, we are now at item 6 of the agenda, public comment. City Administrator Canrath, have you received any public comment for tonight?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I have one piece of public comment. I'll read it into the record now.
Thank you.
This comes to us from Barbara Coleman. She writes, Dear Mayor, Council, City Administrator, and Public, several years ago, the City Council at that time approved a contract zone and credit enhancement agreement for 3 buildings at the property of the former Notre Dame Church. What was agreed to was the construction of 3 buildings on the property and a reduction in parking spaces for the units. As of today, 2 of the 3 buildings have been built. Citizens of Saco, are you aware that the last building has not been started to be built? Instead, I have been informed that Hardy Pond is not going to build that last building, has turned the property over to the city. Has a new CZA or CEI or an amended version been presented for this council to review? If so, when? How much is the value of the property? How long have these activities been occurring? Is Hardy Pond forfeiting its retainer to the city? If so, where are these funds going to be placed? How do we adjust for the prior years when they received funds long before they were entitled? Has adjustment been made for repayment or a bill sent for repayment? Council, again, where was the full disclosure and transparency in regards to all the various pieces of what occurred for this property to be developed? Was there a quid pro quo, I think she's trying to say? When will this stop? Where action are taken and the public not made aware? Barbara Coleman. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, City Administrator Canrath. At this moment in time, I'd like to invite anybody from the public to provide comments to the City Council. If you're on and you would like to provide comments to the council, please use the raise hand feature of the Zoom platform, and you'll be unmuted to speak to the council, or for those using a cellular phone, please dial *9. Again, for those seeking to address the council, please use the raise hand feature of the Zoom platform, or *9 if you're using a cellular phone. Seeing no hands, nobody's seeking recognition. Moving on to, there are no approval of the minutes. There are no consent agenda items for tonight. That brings us to item 9 of the agenda, action items. We have a first reading, amendments to Chapter 211. Councilor Gunn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As part of the implementation of the new online parking ticket and permit software, the police department identified that parking fees were entered into ordinance and conflicted with the approved fee schedule. This revision reserves council authority to levy fines for parking violations, but leaves the specific amounts to the fee schedule, which is approved by council annually. The punitive late fine, which was double the ticket amount if not paid within 5 days, is also removed and reserved instead for the fee schedule. Some other revisions have also been made to designate municipal parking lots throughout the city and to enable the changes to parking permits that will take effect on January 1st, 2021. Public Works, Police, and the City Solicitor have all been given the chance to review and add their edits. Staff recommends approval. Be it ordered that the City Council approve the first reading of amendments to Chapter 211 and set the public hearing for December 7th, 2020. I move to approve the order.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded by Councilor Gunn and seconded by Councilor Minthorn. At this point, I'd like to invite the Finance Director to come before city council and answer any questions that might come up. Councilor Johnston.
I don't have any questions for the finance director, so you can let her go first, and I'll have my comments after, if that's okay.
Thank you. Finance Director Salas, thank you for joining us. Welcome.
Thank you. Yes. I don't have anything to add to sort of what I had presented previously, but I'm happy to take any questions if there are any from the council.
Thank you. Councilor Copeland, do you have a question?
I do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm looking at page 35 in our packet, and there's that City of Saco fee schedule, Appendix A, building rental fees. So now, the way it looks to me is that nonprofits and I have my glasses on, sorry, getting older. Nonprofits and residents cannot use the conference rooms at all. They're after hours. They're not available. Now, they've been using those rooms for a very long time. So I'm not sure if that's just something that has to do with COVID. I mean, it doesn't go into each and every facility. It just says conference rooms. But what about the transportation center? And I just have a real concern about that. We don't want to stop people from talking and doing good works in Saco. So I don't know why it's listed as not available for gymnasium, auditorium, after hours, or the conference rooms, and it just says conference rooms after hours. So why that change?
So that change was actually approved by council as part of the FY 2021 budget process. That change isn't something that council would be voting on this evening. We simply included the entire fee schedule in Exhibit A as reference, but the actual changes that are specific to this action are are related to the parking fees. As I recall it, the reason that conference rooms were made unavailable to general members of the public. Now, for commissions, city commissions, and committees, those conference rooms are still, of course, available. This was just to sort of a general member of the public with whom the city has no previous relationship, and the concern related to security. City Hall, I can't go into a lot of detail. I don't want to divulge something in a public forum that I shouldn't, but there was determined to be a certain amount of risk with allowing members of the public into City Hall after hours who didn't have a formal association with the city of Saco otherwise. So that's why we moved towards making conference rooms unavailable after hours. But that change, that change was already approved previously. So
But it doesn't say anything about the transportation center and the conference room there.
All of the conference, so the conference room is defined in the first section under room type. So the train station conference room would fall under that same category. And again, it relates to security. We're giving an individual access to a public space after hours. There were some security concerns about the building being secured at the end without a full-time city employee on site.
So what is the actual business hours?
So I believe that's listed at the top section as well.
Yeah, I would just jump in. So the train station, it says available from 5 a.m. until 10 p.m. during the week and 5 a.m. until 11 p.m. on weekends.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
All right,
thank you,
so it
Brian.
is
Yeah.
available.
So everything should, I think, fall, before 11 p.m. probably. That should cover most things.
Right, exactly. Yep. So we didn't want, for example, the train station where the hours end at 10 p.m. to have someone there at 1 a.m. Likely that very small. But the train station sort of exists for evening, continues to exist as an option for evening meetings for members of the public.
So what you're saying is the city hall is not available until 10 o'clock.
Correct. The decision was made to designate the train station as sort of the evening hours conference room available to members of the public because there are more delicate security related information in City Hall. So it's a little
Has this been
sensitive.
communicated to all of the groups that currently use the city hall conference rooms?
I mean, I wasn't aware that groups were using City Hall conference rooms because of the global pandemic situation. I had assumed that was no longer available to members of the public because of the other restrictions that we put in place in City Hall.
Right, but after that.
After that, there is a plan to reorganize how reservations are handled and to ensure that members of the public who wish to reserve a meeting space can do so. And we were going to collaborate with Parks and Recreation on that so that there's a single centralized place where members of the public can reserve meeting space.
Collaborate with who and to coordinate with who?
Parks and Recreation. So the Parks and Recreation Department already handles reservations for a number of their own spaces as well as fields in the city of Saco. So the original conversation was that Parks and Recreation would then kind of handle all meeting reservations so that we can ensure for for-profit entities, for example, for whom we're requesting a security deposit, we would be able to collect and return that in a timely manner.
So this is a very big change in how we've done it.
Correct. Yep. This was a change. This is part of the budget process in the spring. Again, I think because we're not really offering members of the public access to meeting spaces right now because of the global pandemic, it was deprioritized until we can arrive at a space where it's safe to allow members of the public to reserve conference spaces in our city buildings.
Well, I think it's important for our community to be able to gather as they have. So, but I will leave that up to them, but I'm glad that it's on the record now and clear as a bell that things are changing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Copeland. Councilor Minthorn.
Thank you, Mayor. Is there a particular reason in 21180B that we do not list the Saco Transportation Center's parking lots in that list?
I believe that I did add that. That was certainly my intention. You said it was, can you give me the specific page that you're looking at?
Looks like page 23.
Yes, the Gooch Street lot, number 5, is the public parking associated with the Saco train station.
All right, I wasn't paying attention to Goose Street and didn't read Saco train over on the side. Thank you.
No problem.
Any other questions for Finance Director Salas? Okay. Finance Director Salas, thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Minthorn, your hand is still up. Thank you. Okay, moving on to
Mr.
Councilor
Mayor.
Johnson.
Thank you. First, you'll have to excuse me. I seem to be losing my voice, but so I guess I got two parts to the same subject. But at last meeting, Councilor Minthorn mentioned an amendment that he was going to be putting forth, And it appears as though that amendment made itself into the documentation that we were provided with without ever being voted on. So there's that, which is problematic from my standpoint. In addition, on that particular subject, which the amendment is adding 2 members of the public to the Traffic Safety Committee. I can understand where we were discussing this particular chapter, and so I guess perhaps it made sense to make other changes to the chapter, but I think that that change is actually pretty significant. I don't know the motivation of Councilor Minthorn's proposed amendment. I assume it's to allow for public or more public participation. And however, while on the surface I can see supporting that, I have a long-standing history of the city. And while I was certainly not on the council back prior to the Traffic Safety Committee being created, I do recall being around as the son of the mayor. And more specifically, I've had several conversations through the years with former councilors that were around at the time. I believe that was the mid-90s it was created. And it was created specifically because prior to that, we had several committees that either dealt with stop signs, guardrails, streetlights, a variety of them. And they were largely staffed by the public. And what had happened through the years was that they became politicized, and you had councilors that sat on it, and you had members of the public, you had councilors that ran on issues, and then they used those committees to push forth changes that really weren't in the best interest of the public safety. So Public Safety Committee was created and staffed by a professional public safety staff. That's predominantly who's on there, with 2 councilors that are there to represent the public. So my concern is that we're really, in a way, shifting back to what used to be, where, again, you can ask several, you can talk to Councilor Smith, who had been on several of those committees and witness firsthand the challenges that were created. Again, the purpose of this is safety, and public safety officials, the police chief, fire chief, Department of Public Works director, they're the ones best equipped with the knowledge of what the standards are for those things. I've been on the wrong side of several votes in my time, 7 years on there, but at the end of it, I accepted the outcome and recognized that perhaps that professional staff knew more than I did. So I would suggest that if we're going to add members of the public, which I'm certainly not opposed to, I think they should be non-voting members. I think you set down this path where you are starting to stack committees, in this particular case, a voting committee, where you could, again, affect the safety of the public without really understanding that you're doing that, because there's no training associated with this. There's no manuals that we're presented with that say, well, what's the standards for a stop sign or what have you. And so it's concerning when you think that, I've seen it in 7 years. I've seen people say, I want a stop sign, and that's what they want. And now all of a sudden you're saying we're going to put members of the public, that's their motivating factor, is that they want to bring about changes to their neighborhood. And, that's valid and all, but it might not meet the public safety standards that are set forth. So again, I'm just stating that now. I realize it's the first reading, but I think that if we're going to add the members of the public, they should be non-voting members. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Johnston. Just one thing I want to make clear. Thank you for your comments, but please remember that I notified the council in the last meeting that this was an initiative that I wanted. And Councilor Minthorn was making the motion on my behalf as the mayor to include that in the packet to come before you. So that's why it is before you, as you as the governing body can remove it, can add to it, and then vote on it. But I think it's important to have some city residents bring some ideas to the table for consideration and discussion. And remember, these appointments would come through the mayor's office and then ultimately voted on by the council. So if the council didn't feel that they brought forward a valid knowledge and skill set, they can vote down the appointment brought forward by this mayor or any former or any future mayor that sits in this position. So again, that's the reason why this came forward. So I just want that to be on the record and made clear. With that, Councilor Minthorn has his hand up, and then we'll go back to Councilor Johnston. Councilor Minthorn.
Thank you, Mayor. Nathan, I was equally surprised to see that included in the language when I read the packet over the weekend. And again, I think by having a couple residents on there again, it brings a public perspective that we as counselors don't necessarily always maybe reflect as much as we should from the standpoint of we get exposed to a lot of the city's operations and policies, procedures, processes, and that kind of thing. And there has been some feedback since I've been on there that the staff, as well as myself, in fact, were not maybe as we should into some of the requests that had come in. So, that being said, I don't want to make more of it than the comments were because they really weren't that sternly worded. But I think having the public participate in the process, and if we carefully select the members of the public to participate, I think they'll be more than able to respect policy, procedure, and ordinance and conduct themselves in a terrific manner. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Minthorn. Councilor Johnston.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor, for clarifying that, this was something that you wanted to put forward. But again, I'm just saying that this goes far beyond just this council. It goes forever, really, until a subsequent council looks to change it. So we can sit here and say that we're going to, put the appropriate people on this board, but I have no idea what future mayors may do, and I do have a past history of it, and I recognize how problematic it became, particularly for our professional staff that were left with implementing things that they professionally didn't agree with. So again, I welcome the public to participate. That every traffic safety meeting is usually pretty well attended. It's open to the public, and anybody from the public can put forth ideas. I've put several through the years that came directly from different members of the public. But I think we should keep them as non-voting members. They still can participate just like any other non-voting member of any other board. But ultimately, I think that those decisions and votes need to kind of rest with the professional staff that is probably best equipped with making those determinations. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Johnston. Councilor Copeland. You're muted, Councilor Copeland.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome.
I strongly believe in citizen participation in our government. I can't say that enough. And while I'm looking at the list of who's going to be there on this, it is 2 members of the city council. Okay, so residents. The police chief, the fire chief, the director of public works, the traffic safety officer, and the city administrator. So if we have a rogue resident saying, I want a stop sign on right in front of the people's house that I can't stand, like ridiculous stuff, I think that there are enough votes there to override that and to make sure that we're safe. My opinion.
Thank you, Councilor Copeland. Any further discussion on anything, not just on this portion, but Chapter 211? Again, this is the first reading. If there are any counselors that would like to submit amendments, again, please submit those to city staff so city staff can properly make amendments for you to make at second reading. Okay, seeing no further discussion, a roll call vote on the motion made by Councilor Gunn, second by Councilor Minthorn. Councilor Archer.
Aye.
Councilor Purdy.
Yes.
Councilor Gunn.
Yes.
Councilor Copeland.
Yes.
Councilor Minthorn.
Yes.
Councilor McPhail.
Yes.
And Councilor Johnston.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. We are at item B, a first reading on the long-range planning committee formation. Councilor McPhail.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Long Range Planning Committee, Mayor William Doyle is seeking to create a new committee for the city of Saco that will be named the Long Range Planning Committee, LRPC. The discussion on establishing the LRPC was held at the City Council meeting on November 2nd, 2020. The newly formed LRPC will serve as an advisory committee to the Saco City Council, and its charge will be to oversee the city's long-term vision for the city by studying and making recommendations on managing the city's future growth and development, assessing zoning and land use initiatives, growth management initiatives, environmental efforts, and update to the comprehensive plan. The establishment of the LRPC is in line with the State of Maine's Growth Management Act, Section 4324, Responsibility for Growth Management, Articles 1 and 2. This act was enacted in 1989, and Saco, like most larger Maine municipalities, has adopted growth management comprehensive plans that establish rural and growth areas and incorporate the major elements of a growth management comprehensive plan. Inventory and analysis, policies, and implementation plans, including zoning ordinance and amendments, and contemplates the establishment of a planning committee to oversee the preparation and amendment of a growth management comprehensive plan and obtain public input as required by state law in the preparation and amendment of a comprehensive plan and zoning ordinance. It is the mayor's and city staff recommendation that the LRPC serve that role for developing the comprehensive plan and in turn oversee accountability for its implementation. A copy of Articles 1 and 2 of the Maine Growth Management Act is attached, and the provision that authorized the appointment of a planning committee are highlighted. Initially, the LRPC will be tasked with reviewing the 2011 comprehensive plan and the 2018 comprehensive plan update with city staff and outside consultants to develop the 2021 comprehensive plan. Together, this group will provide advice and guidance throughout the public engagement process, anticipated to take 18 months to complete. In particular, the committee's work will focus on zoning and land use with the goals of effective growth management, responsible economic development, carefully considered infrastructure improvements, improving Saco's stature as a desirable community in which to live, work, and raise a family. The LRPC will then shift its focus from the development of the Comprehensive Plan 2021 to the implementation of the Comprehensive Plan to ensure that City Council, Planning Board, city staff, annual fiscal year and tax increment financing budgets, capital plans, policies, and other critical initiatives reflect the vision and intention of the Comprehensive Plan 2021. Together with city staff, the LRPC will be responsible for documenting and developing an annual reporting tool to the City Council that will report out the implementation of the Comprehensive Plan. The composition of the LRPC will consist of the following: 2 city councilors, 2 planning board members, 2 economic development commission members, Saco Main Street executive director or designee, age-friendly Saco coordinator or designee, 5 Saco residents. The city staff will include city planner, director of planning and economic development specialist, deputy assessor, city engineer, and the director of code enforcement. The initial LRPC members' terms will be all for a 3-year term commencing December 14th, 2020 and ending December 2023. Subsequent terms will be for the 3 years for city councilors, city boards and committees, Saco Main Street, age-friendly Saco, and for staggered 3, 2, and 1 year terms for citizens. Decommission of the Comprehensive Plan Update Committee for the Comprehensive Plan 2018 update. The recommendation is to decommission the Comprehensive Plan Update Committee for the Comprehensive Plan 2018 update that was established in October of 2016. Their charge was to respond to one of the city council's goals by the Saco City Council to review the comprehensive plan and zoning ordinance for discrepancies, assimilate the Bridge 2025 document, and make recommendations for changes to the document for the next calendar year. That committee has served its role and is no longer needed. Amend the City Code Chapter 4, Section 4-34 and 4-38. Refer to the Exhibit 2 for the amendment to City Code Chapter 4, Section 4-34 Planning Board, and to Section 4-38 Long Range Planning Committee. I move to approve the first reading and set the public hearing for December 7th, 2020 to 1, create a new committee named the Long Range Planning Committee. 2, decommission the Comprehensive Plan Update Committee for the Comprehensive Plan 2018 update. And 3, amend City Code Chapter 4, Section 4-34 Planning Board and Section 4-38 Long Range Planning Committee as outlined in Exhibit 2.
Motion's been made by Councilor McPhail. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Second by Councilor Archer. Discussion, Councilor Copeland.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Looking at all the people that are going to be on there, I'm wondering if it would be advantageous to have a representation of Department of Public Works. You know, maybe they could have some input on what is easier for them to work around and so forth. Just thinking about that. I don't know.
Councilor Copeland, the city engineer is part of the Public Works Department, so he would be part of that that grouping. However, I'm sure if the city administrator, Cainrath, deemed that Public Works Director needed to be involved or present information, that he would bring those folks forward to the committee for communication.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Johnston?
Thank you. Perhaps we change city engineer to just a member of DPW. But that wasn't really my point. I was just thinking out loud. Along those same lines, though, I do think that we perhaps should have a member of the Saco School Department. I don't know who, but I just think that having representation of the school district, considering kids tend to drive a lot of decisions in the city. So just a thought there. Thank you.
Councilor Johnston, thank you very much. Would you like to make that amendment to add in a member of the LRPC composition to include a school board staff representative under city staff? Or we could create another bullet point to add in school staff as designated by superintendent.
Yes, I'd like to do that. Again, it's up to whoever to figure out who the person is, but I just think that somebody from the schools, I mean, I think you said it best with letting the superintendent figure out who.
Councilor Johnston has made a motion to add in a 8th bullet for school staff as
Second.
designated by the superintendent. It's now been seconded by Councilor Copeland. Any discussion on the amendment? On the amendment only? Seeing no hands raised, nobody seeking recognition. On the amendment only, to add in an 8th bullet for school staff as designated by the superintendent. Roll call vote. Councilor Archer. Oh, Councilor Archer has his hand up. Councilor Archer.
I've been trying to actually click the button, but it wasn't going. Sorry about that, Mr. Mayor. Just before we add, obviously it's great to have the school representation, but the numbers, are we trying to keep it an odd or an even? just for voting purposes in the future, for the committee's purposes.
Mayor Doyle, would you like me to answer that question?
Please. And that is Economic Development Director, Planning and Economic Development Director Denise Clavette. Thank you very much for joining us. Welcome. And I'd
Thank
love
you.
for you to take that question.
Thank you. Well, I'm very pleased that somebody thought about the schools because that was a complete oversight. So I want to apologize for that. And I thank you for bringing that forward. Yes, the original intention was to keep it an uneven number for voting purposes, but that's really not as important. That said, you can easily do that if we just add another Saco resident. So, you know what I'm saying? So
Or 2 school board representatives.
right.
Or I was going to just suggest 2 school board representatives.
Okay. I mean, whichever
Not
way
school
we can.
board, my apologies. Members of the school system.
Okay. The more important thing is to have them represented. The less important thing is the numbers. So whatever we need to do in your amendments, if I just need to know if it's staff or a board member or a combination thereof, and what I need to do, like you said, if you had a school board member and a school staff, you know, that would get you the 2, which would keep it uneven. And so that would be fine too.
I'll defer back to Councilor Johnston unless if we want it to be odd, I'll refer back to Councilor Johnson on how to make that motion. But if
Thank you,
even doesn't
Councilor.
matter,
Well, thank you, Council Archer. Thank you, Planning and Economic Development Director Clavette. Councilor Johnston, would you like to a friendly amendment to your amendment to add in a second second school staff as designated by the superintendent?
Yeah, I'd be agreeable to that, but before we do, I just want to make sure we check with the city administrator if there's not anybody else from the city side that should be represented.
City Administrator Canrath.
Thank you. My view is it's a pretty thorough list. Otherwise, I think I'm comfortable and happy with it from a city admin point of view.
Okay. So then, yes, that would be a friendly amendment to add an additional school department representative.
Councilor Copeland, are you still okay with that as a second? I see you have your hands up indicating yes. So that is the amendment to add in a bullet for two school staff as designated by the superintendent on the amendment only. Roll call. Councilor Archer?
aye.
Councilor Purdy?
Yes.
Councilor Gunn?
Yes.
Councilor Copeland?
Yes.
Councilor Minthorn?
Yes.
Councilor McPhail?
Yes.
And Councilor Johnston?
Yes.
The amendment passes 7-0 to add in 2 school staff as designated by the superintendent. Back to the main motion as amended. Any questions, comments? This will go for a public hearing on the 7th. If you have any additions or suggested amendments, please go ahead and submit those to City Administrator Canrath so the packet can be updated for you to make those amendments. Councilor Copeland.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As I'm submitting my resignation for next Monday. This is functionally the last city council meeting that I'll be at. I really would like somehow to have the green belt concept, a natural green belt concept in, at least on the list for consideration by the long-term planning group. So I don't know if we can put something in there or if somebody will remember and bring it up. But I think that's a really critical thing for the infrastructure here in Saco for animals, people, and our economy, natural-based economy. So
Thank you, Councillor Copeland. I'm sure that you'll be asked some questions as the newly representative-elect when it comes down to the consultants going out and talking to people in the community, and you'll be fully able to present that idea and further that idea with your advocacy here in Saco, but also up the State House.
thank you so much. That's
You're
perfect.
very welcome. Thank you. With that, any further discussion on the motion as amended? Seeing no councillors seeking recognitions and no hands raised, a roll call vote on the motion as amended. Councillor Archer?
Aye.
Councillor Archer, you were muted. I did not hear you.
Aye.
Thank you. Councillor Purdy
Yes.
and Councillor Gunn,
Yes.
Councillor Copeland,
Yes.
Councillor Minthorn,
Yes.
Councillor McPhail,
Yes.
and Councillor Johnston.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0 as amended. We are now at item 10 of the agenda. Thank you very much, everyone. This is new business. We have item A of Code of Conduct Review. City Administrator Canrath and Communications Director Roy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll just note that Emily Roy, our Communications Director, did just lose power and will not be able to join us, which is unfortunate, but that's okay. I'm here and should be able to handle any questions. So this is something that I think is long overdue and is very important to the city. This document, this is something that I could just say did exist in other places where I've worked as manager, and I think it is important to have before us. So you've probably all read through it, but this document basically will now govern a number of areas, including ethics and conduct for city officials, conflicts of interest, as well as regulation of the conduct and sanctions that could possibly be imposed. I think the first couple of paragraphs of the document really lay out why this is necessary, but I think one line sort of encaptures that the purpose of this policy is to establish a culture of transparency, openness, trust, fairness, equity, and to emphasize the employees, citizens, and committee members' expectation to be treated ethically and with fair business practices. So I think this is, like I said, a long overdue and needed document. Not that we have any, major problem areas that we're putting this forward to remedy right now, but going into the future, I think this is important for us to have. So that's all I have. I know Councillor Minthorn also had some input and worked on this, as well as the mayor. We sat down together and looked at this previously. So happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, City Administrator Canrath. I would just like to thank Emily Roy and other city staff for their hard work on putting this document together and searching through other code of ethics for different communities and taking the best of all the different code of ethics policies that they've seen and putting it together to have one uniform document that will adapt with our current ordinances and then oversee. This was put forward for legal review and it was approved by our city solicitor. And so that has been part of the process. Councillor Johnston?
Thank you. I would agree. It's long overdue. It's something that I had asked the prior city administrator to work on prior to his end of his tenure. So I am thankful to see this come forth. I have no questions, just a few comments. Specifically, section 5, number 3, appointed officials. It reads that board members who repeatedly or intentionally do not follow proper conduct, whether outside of or before, during, or after their public meetings may be sanctioned by the mayor. I believe that that should be by the chair of their respective committee. And then the second portion of that states any member of a board may be removed for cause by the mayor, provided that the member shall be first notified in writing, given the opportunity for a hearing with the city council. Again, this isn't directed at you, Mr. Mayor. It's just mayors in general. In the city of Saco, and this is affording new powers to the mayor that do not align with the charter. So given that council is ultimately the one that has legislative powers and they approve an appointment, they should also be the ones that votes to remove an appointed individual. And I would say that that person should be afforded that opportunity to have a hearing in the public if they so choose. But I don't agree with making the mayor a singular decider of an appointed position's fate. That, again, it should lie with council. That's the way most things, or just about everything, reads per the charter. So outside of that, everything else on my first read over looked pretty good. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Johnston. I would just point out that the idea for that, and maybe it needs to be reworded, but the idea for that would be that any member would be notified in writing and then given the opportunity for a hearing with the council, where then the council would vote either way to approve or not approve, such sanction by the mayor. And as you may or may not remember, there was an amendment, a charter amendment, when we discussed charter amendments, that there would be a change to 2.09 of the charter to reflect a code of conduct policy. And this would be the reflective code of conduct policy to make it all encompassing and uniform. And so that's kind of the thought process, but I understand what you're saying, and we can maybe make the wording a little more clearer if that's necessary. Councilor Johnston.
Yeah, that's, I mean, again, this first read over, like you said, maybe it's not worded correctly, but it says a supermajority of council is required to overturn mayor or the mayor's decision. I would say that, again, this is affording new powers to the mayor, and whoever that mayor may be could easily, I mean, a lot of this stuff is a matter of perception, right? So you can read through this and say, if I chose that I don't like an individual on a committee, I'm sure I can manipulate my way to making it, or a mayor could, as a way to oust them. And if it so happens, as we have had in the past, where you have a mayor that also has a council of friends or like-minded individuals, and they all run as a ticket or what have you, you could really bring about some fundamental changes that I don't think's in the best interest of the public. So again, I think that the wording there, and perhaps that this should read that the council as a body determines if an appointed individual is removed, because ultimately we are, and I've seen it in the past where a mayor has made an appointment and the council didn't approve that appointment. So, if we're going to be removing somebody that has previously been appointed by a council, it should be that council that removes them, and not a singular mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Johnston. Any further discussion? Councilor Minthorn.
Thank you. So reading in 5.3, second paragraph, any member of a board may be removed for cause by the mayor, provided that the member shall first be notified in writing, given an opportunity for a hearing with the city council. The appeal process must be initiated with a letter to the city administrator's office within 10 business days upon receipt of the letter. A supermajority of the council is required to overturn the mayor's decision. So pretty much sounds like due process to me. If there's, for whatever reason, most of our boards, committees, whatever, if the chair has issue with a member, they're supposed to bring it up the line to the mayor and the city council. And some of them have that in writing. Others do not have the bylaws to have that in writing. Further, in number 4, we get back to, again, that it comes before council for these items, and that we ultimately decide what this happens. Unfortunately, the structure of many of these committees is somewhat weak, and some of the chairs are weak and are not necessarily following good conduct, good policy, and that's created some of the issues that have been brought up the chain of command over time. So, yes, maybe the wording needs a little assistance and clarity. It has been, again, reviewed by legal already once, but maybe it needs it a second time to make it more in line with due process. Staff can certainly look at that between now and offer amended language if they feel it's appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Minthorn. I think the idea of the language was really that the mayor makes the appointment and the council confirms the appointment, that the mayor should have some deference. Again, if you read the language, it says removal for cause. This cannot be a popularity contest. There has to be cause and so forth to bring forward. So it's not something where this is not something we look to do. This is not something that we're happy to do. And believe you, I know that myself, I don't have time to be going through and looking and nitpicking every little thing that people do to try and find cause. And I don't think that's the mayor's role. I think really what we're just looking to do is to say, if there is an issue, that the mayor has the opportunity to bring that forward, provide written notice of why, and then the council can either confirm or overturn the mayor's appointment. And I think the council is going to, regardless if they ran as a ticket, regardless of how the election cycle plays out, I don't think that plays into whether somebody has cause or not cause to be removed or to stay. I think everyone can look at that objectively and say, yeah, I think there's cause or there's no cause. I don't think that any one person has authority over 7 other people or 5 other people or 2 other people to push something that might, that is not valid. I mean, removal for cause is you have to have some reason to remove. And I think that's part of some of the other sections here. But again, we can wordsmith between now and, first reading some of the language to make it even more in line. But I believe this is in line with either the Zoning Board of Appeals or Code of Ordinances as far as in line with the process. But again, this is the initial blush. This is the work. This is the work session or new business. And this is an opportunity for council to put in their input. And if you have things that you would like to see different, please submit that to City Administrator Canrath, and it'll make it into the next document. Councilor Johnston.
Oh, well, thanks. Again, I'm not looking to overly debate this. I said what I said, and I think that perhaps if we change some of the words, it would be, more stomachable for me, I guess. But, and again, none of my comments were directed at any of you, Mr. Mayor, or councilors. The problem is I can list past history where we can say that, oh, we hope that this doesn't happen. We have past history where it has in this city, and it's not that long ago. So, I mean, that's my concern is looking forward. We can sit here today and say, well, we need this because, you know, as what has been stated, but ultimately my concern is moving forward that you do have individuals that have, you know, an axe to grind, and for a cause. I mean, that's subjective too. Nothing here defines what for cause is. So I just think that we have to be careful with these things. That's all. I hate to see, you know, good planning board members or some other committee have people removed because certain individuals didn't like the way, I don't know, they voiced their opinions or something. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Johnston. Again, if anyone would like to see any language changes or any sort of amendments to this before it comes to the council for first reading, please submit that to City Administrator Canrath. At this point, we are moving on to agenda item B, which is Bsab transit update, the Biddeford Saco Old Orchard Beach transit update. And for that, we would like to welcome and bring forth Executive Director Tony Scavuzzo for a presentation on the Biddeford Saco Old Orchard Beach transit system. Executive Director Scavuzzo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening.
Welcome.
Good evening to the council. Good evening, City Administrator Canrath. Appreciate the time tonight. Just wanted to take an opportunity to update the council and the group on happenings here. There's a lot going on with our organization. Wanted to make sure that give you an update at this time, just to make sure that everybody's in the loop on all the different happenings with us. So I'm going to share my screen. Here we go. So just a COVID-19 update quickly. We're continuing to sanitize our vehicles for each day of service with electrostatic disinfectant guns and foggers to make sure everything is disinfected. Masks are still required to ride. We have hand sanitizer on board. We are protecting our drivers, and we're social distancing on board as well during this difficult time. Our ridership is at about 52% of what would typically be expected in a non-pandemic situation. So our ridership is down and our fare recovery is down as well. So the CARES Act is really keeping us whole for the time being. This plan through PACs for augmented funding for the local transit authorities on Greater Portland will keep us whole through the end of 2021, probably into 2022. But at that point, if we don't see some changes in ridership trends, which we're hoping that a bridge has been built long enough into the future, so ridership and fare recovery would be back to, quote, normal levels. Not sure if that will really happen, but we'll be facing a fiscal cliff in 18 to 24 months if things don't turn around. But we're optimistic that vaccines will come around, people will be back to school, people will be back to work, and we will see trends back to where we would expect, or at least closer to where we would expect. We were happy to be able to provide fiscal relief in the form of the municipal contribution, remaining flat for this fiscal year, which we feel strongly that was the right move. We do have CARES Act dollars that we're leaning on, so we were happy that we were able to give some relief to our own municipalities, but we're in a position where we can't do that another year, and our local match needs to increase. The municipal contributions will need to increase to begin to prepare for an environment that does not include CARES Act support, because we all know that is not going to last forever. So just some ridership update. 2019, over 366,000 riders. That was the most we had ever had in the history of our organization. Fiscal year 2020, which included April, May, and June of 2020, we ended up at the end of the year down 27% in ridership. That included a full trolley season in the summer of 2019. The fiscal year ends up beginning with our trolley season, which is a huge boost to ridership and to fare recovery. So next fiscal year, we're really projected to be even less than fiscal year 2020 because we lost almost the whole trolley season this year because of the seasonal downturn in visitors. So fare recovery in the same situation, most we had ever been, 527,000 in fiscal year 2019, down 31%. Fiscal year 2020 and projected to be even less in fiscal year 2021, where the brunt of our fare recovery was lost. We've run fare free from mid-March until October 1st in response to the pandemic. So municipal contributions currently 165,000. That's remained flat for this fiscal year. That ladder that's presented will be what we're shooting for to make sure that we are again preparing to maintain operations, but also preparing for a post-CARES Act support to be in place to make sure that we are still solvent. So just trying to make sure that the power of the 3 owner municipalities is reaching a level that some of our adjacent municipalities are at, so we can make sure that we, again, are running a healthy organization. Quick project update. We have our automated vehicle locator, continues to be popular. People can use their computers and smartphones to see the actual location of our buses in real time within 3 seconds, so people don't have to be calling us asking where the bus is anymore. And it's streamlined our operations a little bit. We don't have to get as many phone calls asking where the bus is anymore because people are empowered to do so on their own. So we want to use technology to work smarter, not harder, which we are doing. The Dirigo electronic fare collection system was launched October 1st. It was supposed to be April 1st. It was put off for obvious reasons. The timing of this, we're really excited about electronic fare collection, but the timing of this was great for the global societal situation. Introduced contactless fare collection to all of our vehicles, which has been a great success right now. There's a picture of how people now are paying their fares either with their smartphone or a stored value card, showing them to readers on board. And on the right, you can see the branding. The regional branding is called the Dirigo card. This Dirigo card and this way to pay not only is usable on Biddeford, Saco, Old Orchard Beach transit vehicles, but also Greater Portland Metro and South Portland bus service. So we are hitting goals in the region to make ridership a little bit easier and more seamless to make sure all the different services can be used with one way to pay. So that's been a big push into the future regionally since October 1st. Our first new wave of vehicles has arrived. The stars have aligned with grant and match dollars to make sure that we can begin to turn over our aging fleet. The average age of our fleet is over 14 years. So if you had 2 vehicles in your driveway that were both 14 years ago, you'd really be thinking about changing one or both of those to not be sinking money into a vehicle that may not be worth it. We're battling this all the time. And we want to drive down costs in our garage by introducing new vehicles into our fleet. So they're currently in revenue service. We got them in early October. There's a picture of these 2 new over-the-road coaches that are servicing our Zoom Express run right now. We're really excited about this. It's the first new vehicles that our organization has had in over 10 years. It shouldn't be this big a deal. It's a very big deal, but Healthy Operations introduces new vehicles all the time, so we want to start that cadence right now. But these 2 new coaches are now in revenue service, and we are very excited to have taken ownership of them. So for those that have had a chance to see them, they know how nice they are and how excited we are. We have a trolley procurement in process. We have a chance for 2021 delivery of these 8 new trolleys, of which there have been $0 from the owner municipalities toward the purchase. We've gotten all the grant money and match money we've needed from other sources. So that's been exciting as well. Our trolley fleet is, they're mostly 2000s. 6 of our 7 trolleys are over 20 years old. So another place we really needed an upgrade to make sure we can provide the service needed reliably to our visitors and everybody using the trolley service. We're really excited about that. Electric bus project also continues to proceed. We are on track to take delivery of 2 of the first 4 electric buses in the state of Maine in late 2021. We have had some changes to this project since we've had a site visit in the last 6 weeks by our bus manufacturers, which is Proterra, and other stakeholders in this project. Just wanted to show a picture of the charging infrastructure. We will need en route charging to make sure that these electric buses can be in service all day, every day. They will be charged at our garage on Palmerville Street in Biddeford overnight, but to be able to stay in revenue service all day, every day, they will need an en route charging solution like this shown to be able to check in after every loop, every hour loop. They'll be able to charge with this pantograph charger and The beauty of the pantograph charger is the charging infrastructure comes down on top of the bus to charge it. The infrastructure is 18 feet tall and will be installed at Saco Transportation Center, which has been the new hub of our service since August of 2019. The plan for this charging infrastructure was to install it in the front of Saco Transportation Center at the site of the former windmill, because it not only has a concrete pad, but it has electrical plumb to it already. So we're hoping to take advantage of that. We found out at our site visit that we need 5-inch conduit to adequately power this charging infrastructure to be able to charge these buses. And we didn't have 5-inch conduit at the current pad location. So we wanted to make sure that we lessened disruption and cost at Saco Transportation Center. So the new plan for our operation is to move it from the front of Saco Transportation Center to the rear of Saco Transportation Center. So this is a quick graphic of what the proposed plan will be to install this charging infrastructure and to move our operation from the front to the back of the building. It's been another rousing success, having a presence and a central location, not only for our bus service, but for some of our admin and customer service staff to service our ridership at a central location. So instead of digging from where the power source is going to be next to those red top generators in the rear of Saco Transportation Center, it didn't make a lot of sense to dig all the way from there to the front to get the conduit to where it needed to be in the front. So moving everything to the back and boring this underground current to make sure that the charging infrastructure was back there. We proposed a location of the bus charging and loading area adjacent to Gooch Street. So if this happens, which we're on track for it to happen, it will streamline our operation again, and it will also result in 13 to 15 more parking spaces gained at Saco Transportation Center, because all the parking will be gotten back in the front of the building, that front parking area, and just a fraction of the parking will be taken in the back. So we're excited about this. We are meeting with stakeholders as we speak. I'm meeting with the Traffic Safety Council later this week, continuing to discuss these options. So just wanted to make sure that this was out there and explained far in advance of potential actual activity. Lastly, quick downtown circulator update. This is matriculating nicely project-wise. Again, this public transit circulator will be servicing the downtowns of not only Saco, but Biddeford and the University of New England. Will be serviced by a trolley. We're hoping it's one of the new trolleys, so everybody in the downtown areas will be seeing one of our 8 new trolleys on a daily basis. Planning on the route to be 20-minute loops, 35 to 40 minutes a day, with 12 trips to U&E to make sure that we are servicing that partner effectively as we do right now. The stops in Saco will include City Hall, Saco Transportation Center, and 4 Scammon, which is Saws Plaza, targeting the launch for about August of this year, about mid-August of this year, open for a pilot period before that to make sure we can make some practice runs. Service will be all year, 361 days a year. As far as the actual projected cost of operation, it's about just over 350,000, with half of that coming from our 5307 grant support from FTA. We have local match support from UNE. That's his annual stipend that we get from them to service them, which leaves close to $90,000 of annual remaining costs that we have to make up. I've reached out to the main DOT, and I've received for this project multimodal transit support dollars, which will cover that remaining cost for the first 3 years of its operation. So we'll get 3 years before any other involvement financially will be needed. Starting with that 4th year, the cities will be responsible for that remaining cost, but we're hoping we can put a dent in that with some new advertising opportunities that we'll have for this new route. This is what the vehicle will look like. It won't be blue and tan, it will be green and silver, as our new color scheme and logo would dictate. So we're really excited to have trolley activity to solve that last mile challenge that we're all trying to get to the bottom of. And transit-wise, we'll be able to be really making a difference there with people getting off at Saco Transportation Center with their challenges on how do they get their destination out. Right now, they have to walk There's really no bike service. There's no scooters, so we'll be able to use this downtown circulator to solve those last mile challenges. I'm going to zoom through these last few slides real quick. In the essence of time, it just outlines what the actual route will be. You'll have this in your packet. So benefits for the downtown circulator. Number one, for both downtowns, congestion mitigation, which is a big deal. It will be free to board for ease of use. You'll see more transit service within the owner municipalities. It's a suggested future direction of Transit Tomorrow. And what Transit Tomorrow was a GPCOG study seeking what this future of transit would be in the greater Portland area. And one of the outcomes is downtown circulators in some of the larger downtown areas, including Portland, which already has one, Brunswick, Westbrook, and Biddeford and Saco is one of the areas that the goals would be a downtown circulator to, again, solve the last mile challenges for people, and we will be on the front end of that. The funding gap has been filled with Maine DOT multimodal support, which usually goes to the airport system. So we're lucky to get those dollars for the first 3 years of operation. Again, it further enhances the last mile connections from Saco Transportation Center in the Mill District and downtown areas. And it will be trolley service. Again, we're getting 8 new ones, hopefully in the next 6 months at no cost to the owner municipalities. So that was it. And I'm exhausted.
Director Scavuzzo, thank you very much for your presentation. Councilor Copeland has her hand up. Councilor Copeland.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Scavuzzo. Very nice presentation, very wonderful news about the circulator, and I'm sure it's going to help a lot of senior citizens get around and others. 2 questions, one out of just curiosity. The first question is about snow and the charger. So if it's snowing out, how does that thing get there, connect or whatever? So if there's a lot of snow or a lot of dirt or something on top of the bus, how does that work? And the second question is, where is the bus boarding? If you're moving the charging to the back, is that where people will board?
So second question first, that's where everybody will board, and we're looking to leverage project dollars from a transit stop access project that we have currently going with GPCOG. We'll have some dollars there. So we will have to create some curb cuts, some new striping, and a sidewalk that's adjacent to Goose Street for the boarding to happen. And your first question was about snow. So we'll
Right,
be,
but can we stay on that last one for just
Yeah.
one more second?
Yeah.
A follow-up question about that. What about like a canopy or something where people can wait and not be in the weather? Since they're not able to wait up top.
we're hoping people can
Inside.
wait in Saco Transportation Center and see the buses come in and then board then. That's the idea of leveraging the transportation center, and it's such a good resource for us. That's what people are doing right now with the operation in the front. They're waiting inside in inclement weather, darkness and snow, and when the buses come in, they board. So we're hoping that can continue. But
Is there a way inside the building to get from the waiting room upstairs to the downstairs exit to the bus?
waiting room upstairs, I'm sorry.
Well, the general room where people wait.
There's
And
sidewalks and there's a crosswalk there right now, but it would have to be updated to get out to that that area adjacent to the parking lot on Goose Street.
my concern just is people with mobility issues. And
Right.
that's now they've got to go down a hill potentially with snow and ice, and it's a distance. I'm just trying to be a voice for that.
No, and it's completely understood. We'd want to be ADA compliant in every way, shape, or form we could. There will need to be some new curb cuts. There will need to be some new striping and new crosswalks, and we'll definitely be looking into everything being ADA compliant. And one of the transit stop access project goals, it's touching about 100 different transit stop locations in Greater Portland, making them all ADA compliant with shelters as needed. Anything that can happen that can make sure curb cuts are correct, loading areas are safe. So that's all part of the project. So we're hoping we can leverage that to make sure it's completely ADA compliant. We wouldn't want to do it any other way. And your other question was about, snow. Yes, we'll be clearing off the buses as they leave. But if it is snowing, the apparatus, we've actually touched base with some colleagues in Edmonton, Alberta, and asked all these questions. They said with a small amount of snow on top of the vehicle, they're still able to be charged. And actually, with diesel heaters that we'll have in those buses, the actual performance is in the wintertime is nearly as good as the summertime. So they've been our test case. We have harsh winters. Edmonton has much harsher winters. So when we talked to our colleagues in Edmonton with all these different climate challenges, we aired out every single question we could possibly, and this was one of them. And they gave us supreme confidence that we'll be in good shape.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Councilor Copeland. Councilor Johnston.
Thank you. Yeah. First, Tony, great job. Good presentation. I'm really excited to hear about the circulator plan. It's long overdue. It's been an issue for a long time in the downtown to, get people that, are mobility challenged around to just down the hill and over to Biddeford. So that's exciting. The only comments or questions I have are, is there any possibility of maybe moving the City Hall stop in Saco, maybe more like mid down towards the businesses? And then I understand you're just, putting this together and unveiling it, but is there any potential now or in the future for perhaps a stop on Water Street? For a long time, I've had residents over at Lord Pepperell and at Phoenix that have asked for, a bus to come down the street. And, in the past, I was always able to, kind of explain to them that the buses were probably problematic to have a stop on that street. But with you using trolleys, it would seem like maybe that's an option. Thank you.
Sure. We can move the City Hall stop anywhere on Main Street that makes the most sense. So this isn't set in stone yet. We're close, but this is the time to make those changes. So we can certainly talk about that. There's no question and no doubt about that. Number one. Number two, Water Street is too tight to get any big vehicle down with people parking on both sides. We've tried it with the transit bus in the past. We've heard that feedback, and we've had to back out of Water Street a few times in the past. So we want to avoid that. So we'll be using Elm Street North, taking a left on Scammon to service Shaw's Plaza, taking a right on North Street, and then entering Main Street from North Street, coming back down Main Street. So we'll be serving Water Street on both ends. So that's about as close as we will get to in Water Street because of the challenges that the parking and the narrowness of the street give us. So I think that's the long answer there.
All right. Thank you. Again, just as you think long term, maybe in the future, if the opportunity presents itself, and obviously, funding is always an issue, but maybe running, some of those smaller sized buses and thinking of that, neighborhood. Because again, it's almost at least monthly, I hear from residents over at Lord Pepperell that are, particularly during the pandemic, that have just, feel neglected and they have mobility issues. And so they can't really get out. And even just walking up the street, to either end is problematic for them. So it's just, whether it's your organization or maybe even the city, going forward, it's something that we all should kind of think about how to address, getting to those residents. Thank you.
Duly noted. Thank you.
Any other questions for Executive Director Scavuzzo? Councilor Minthorn?
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to thank Tony for providing my committee comment tonight. Saved me a lot of words at the beginning of the meeting. We've all that are affiliated with transit have been doing a heck of a job trying to keep everything running and keeping the effort by our neighbors to the north from taking over our transit system. I don't think that's done. I don't think that's over. We all need to be very aware of the fact that if we don't fund our bus system here locally, it's only going to give our friends to the north more opportunity to come after us. And they are definitely bending leaderships here in Augusta and trying to facilitate our brand new hardware to come up and service their customers. So we all need to be aware of that. We all need to use transit as much as we possibly can. I know I've had some comments from folks about the fact we haven't brought the Maroon line back yet. There was just so low a ridership post the first COVID closures that we just didn't see any financial way to do that. There may be some opportunities coming forward that might help facilitate that. And as always, everybody affiliated with transit is always available to listen and make adjustments throughout the year as opportunities present themselves. And I want to thank Tony again. It's been a great 18 months now, almost 2 years that he's been on board, and it's all been very good, and we love having him there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Minthorn. Any further questions for Executive Director Scavuzzo? Seeing no further questions, Tony, thank you for your time tonight. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for your great presentation and your hard work.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Bye, folks. Thanks.
Council, up next, we have item C, which is Ecology School Education Waiver. I think for this, we're going to be inviting City Planner Bob Hamblin forward. City Planner Hamblin, thank you for joining us. Welcome.
Thank you.
So we have this waiver request from the Ecology School that's being presented. Can you provide a little more information for the council on that? And then answer any questions that may or may not come up. I see Councilor Archer's hand is up, so it looks like he has a question right out of the gate.
I'd be glad to answer any questions that I can.
Is there any presentation further than just what's in the packet on page 102?
Mr. Mayor, not really.
Okay.
Simply boils down to, well, if councilors have taken a look at the meeting item commentary, it's right there in a nutshell.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Archer, do you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's actually not a question. It was as the presenting counselor I believe next week or the next time it comes onto the floor. I spoke with the school today, and I'll be adding I think it should go under background. And our city administrator already has the wording, so I'll read it right now. It's quick and short. But the idea is that this is a payment in lieu of taxes, and I completely believe that this waiver is needed because of COVID. However, the school, I was talking with the school today, they are still going to be able to provide some services remotely to our students. So again, I'm fully supportive about this, but I'm also was speaking with the school today, and I'd like to add this probably to the background of the information. I'll read it as is. Given the constraint of the COVID-19 pandemic has placed on in-person ecology program, the Ecology School will be offering online distance learning opportunities by February 2021 for the Saco schools that include ecology activities for classroom teachers to use and students and their families to do at home and at the appropriate outdoor locations. So I did speak with the school today, and they're on board. with still providing some resources for students. I was thinking about this over the weekend. Again, this is a payment in lieu of taxes. And I knew that there was probably going to be some concerns about the absolute waiver. And again, I do recognize the importance of this and that it's kind of a unique situation in which this waiver will be. However, after talking with the school, they're still going to be able to provide some services to our students. So with the fact that they're still going to be providing some remote activities along with the waiver, I think we have a good product to still provide our students in this school system. So again, the city administrator does have the wording, and I believe it's most appropriate just to go into the background. It doesn't have to be part of the motion. But I just wanted to let the council know that you might see that in the next, a change in the document because of a discussion that I had with the ecology school. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Councilor Archer. Councilor Johnston.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I obviously recognize the financial constraints they're under. Obviously, they haven't been able to produce any programming, or at least nothing significant. But, you know, at the same time, as Councilor Archer just, you know, indicated, this was put forth really as a payment in lieu of taxes. So I'm a little weary of just an outright waiver of it. So I'm curious as to whether or not we could just defer the payment into subsequent future years. And that way the Saco school system still receives the programming, and it's just, you know, we could divide it in 5 and we could just spread it out, you know, increase that benefit for the next 5 years or whenever they're able to actually provide it. So that's, again, being a new business, it's just a thought that I had while sitting here. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Johnston. Councilor Archer. Okay. Any other council comment? I see we have the Ecology School Director, Drew Demsch, on and has his hand raised. Is there any objection to bringing him forward? Hearing no objection from the City Council, if we could promote Drew, please. Drew, welcome. Thank you for joining us this evening on this most important matter here.
Yes, I appreciate your consideration. This is any kind of in-person type of programming nonprofit would tell you since March, it's been incredibly rough until there's a viable vaccination, a certain level of herd immunity, any kind of in-person program at any level for the ecology schools, pretty much, if not impossible, very hard to pull off. I do have a concern with Councilor Johnston's proposal that you then just tack that on in the future. $40,000 in free programming a year is already an extraordinary amount of free programming that we work hard. We were able to do it and surpass that last year, but I do have a concern of like divvying up 40,000 this year, 40,000, then all of a sudden we have 80,000 in past due programming that's viewed as something we have to make up over years. So I do have a strong concern about that. Again, we are going to do we have been, we stand ready to work with the Saco schools at any level that's deemed appropriate. As you know right now, and as someone, my wife works for the Scarborough School District, schools are underwater right now. This is a tough time. So the idea that we can, even if we are available, that they have the energy and the openness to do any level of programming is non-existent. So I do have that concern.
Thank you, Drew. I'm just looking at section P of the of the agreement, and it says the Ecology School, part of the curriculum education program, shall commit to supporting the Saco school system in perpetuity with at least 66% of all yearly program tuition for school year academic programs that are provided upon mutual agreement between the Saco schools, the Ecology School. If the Ecology School program is unable to provide support at 66% level, which given a pandemic, there's no chance that you could do that. So I think that's where we are. The value of the overall program is below 40,000, right? So there's a comma, or the value of the overall program is below 40,000, again, comma, or the Saco school system is no longer able to participate. The Ecology School will make an annual contribution of $20,000 to the city of Saco. So your waiver is programming in the amount of 40,000, or is the waiver for the 20,000 annual contribution?
Oh my God! If you're going to turn around, we do not have $20,000 to give the city either. Our whole point on the waiver is we can't do any this year. We're hopeful by September. What we're hearing from the national CDC now in Maine is if there's an effective vaccination, hopefully by the beginning of school year 2021-2022, there's a strong likelihood we can start doing programming again in person at the level that would warrant. As you can see from that letter I shared with both the city staff and the council, we already had over $32,000 in programming on the books for the spring alone. We would have easily gone past 40,000 in free programming during 2020 this year. So this is not at all because we weren't working closely with the school. We're in the middle of a global pandemic.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councilor Copeland.
I don't have any questions. I just wanted to give some food for thought. I mean, this is a pandemic. We have had extraordinary times. People have stepped up with the food banks, the food distribution, helping out our downtown businesses by allowing them to prepare the meals for food for distribution to seniors and those who need them. And there are a variety of things. I mean, there's been loan programs through the city for the businesses. There's all kinds of extraordinary steps that we're taking to support the important entities in our city. And I, for one, think that the Ecology School is amazing. I think it should be replicated throughout the state. I think that what we have here is something very valuable, and I don't see penalizing them at all. These are folks who are just doing really good work for our students, for all students, and I think that that should be taken into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Copeland. Any further? Councilor Johnston.
Thank you. Again, not to get into a back and forth debate, but I understand what Councilor Copeland was just saying, but we have several other pilot programs in the city that we haven't exempted that are also nonprofits. So in order to be fair, that's the concern I have is, are we going to move forward and now exempt all of them too? And it's really something we should think about. I'm not necessarily advocating for that, but we should think about it, because I know if I was a nonprofit that was forced to pay into a pilot this year and they're watching this, I'd be questioning whether or not I get a credit back. That's why I was encouraging, or at least the thought of deferring this as we do others. And even if we waive a portion of it and defer it, I'd be agreeable to that. But an outright waiver is problematic to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Johnston. Any further council comment? Councilor Minthorn?
Yeah, I'm sitting here struggling for numbers at this very second. I mean, looking at the 2019 contribution was $44,477. They were at 32.8. Pandemic prior, if you will. So that number being said, I mean, we're really looking at about $2,700 at this point. If you look at the, you know, if we're talking a multi-year rolling average, or if that's where Nathan was possibly thinking of heading with the 40,000, I would say, okay, you know, they came into this year plus 4477. They provided 32,800. They're short about 2,700. I think that is well in line with discretionary waiver of the council for that 2,700, if you will, that way. I think next year, hopefully their commitment that I know the Ecology School is well undertaking in providing alternative curriculums that are deliverable through Zoom and that kind of thing is well underway. And their ability to provide the 40,000 probably in the coming year will be hopefully equally achieved with the new curriculums they're constructing for that purpose, not knowing what that pandemic classroom setting is going to look like as we, you know, transverse 2021. So, you know, if council wanted to look at a rolling average, I could do that. But I think that if that's the case, then we should be looking backwards at 2018 and 2019's numbers for any positive credits that might be offered where they were above 40,000, so that 5-year number is still not providing an insurmountable hurdle to get to the, so we're not sitting there going, okay, Drew, you got to get out the checkbook for 20 grand because you missed it by $1 when they were ahead 4,500 roughly the year before. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Minthorn. Council, I would like to invite Planning and Economic Development Director Denise Clavette to come forward and speak, as she has some information that might be helpful for the council. Director Clavette.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Doyle. I received a communication from Drew, and it's a draft communication from the schools from Julie. Is it Smythe or Smith? I'm sorry if I massacred her name. It's spelled SMYTH. That has actually provided some light, but it's not an official communication, so it's in draft form. I could present it to the council in time for this meeting. But it basically justifies and explains that the school has to provide an annual report that's due to the city's Planning and Economic Development Director by the first week in January. So in advance of that letter, it basically substantiates that there is no way that the Ecology School could anywhere close to conceivably come up with the 40,000 of services because of COVID. So the schools are actually acknowledging, and again, it's in draft form, that there is a problem and that there's no way that it can be rectified because of the combination, not just that the school, that the Ecology School hasn't been able to produce, but that the schools themselves haven't had the opportunity to allow the Ecology School to conduct the programs that it needs to be able to accommodate their commitment for this year. And so, and there's also in that draft communications that there is a concern about the ability for them to even have that ability next year as well, because nobody knows what's going to be happening. And so what I've done is, we've kind of parked that communication. I mean, it's not for Bob to have assembled it and put it in there because it's not an official letter. But I know that if we had Julie online right now, she would basically corroborate with what we're talking about. And I think Drew has access to that information. He's the one that forwarded it as well. I think in this particular case, we have to view it a little bit different than some of the other pilot programs, because this is in essence a school program that is trying to provide a great service to our existing schools, and it just can't happen because of COVID. And so we've made a lot of accommodations. We've done grant programs. We've done a lot of things for businesses And I think this is just another way of saying, you know, COVID really was not our friend. In fact, it's been our enemy and will continue to be for a little while. And in this particular case, I think penalizing them by saying, make it up 3 or 4 years from now, I'm not sure the schools would agree with that either, you know, because we're all doing the best that we can. And so I just wanted to add that as well. And hopefully what I can do is by next week's meeting is to actually get the official communications from the school that I can actually present as part of your decision-making process.
Thank you, Director Clavette. Council, we're going to hear from Director Dumsch from the Ecology School, who has his hand up. Drew?
Yes, Mayor Doyle, I just want some clarity. Are there other in lieu of taxes that are programming, and at what level? I think it's a little bit, I was attending one of your previous council meetings where you discussed pilot. Given the levels I saw, 40,000 is pretty extraordinary for a lot of nonprofits. It's already at a quite high level. Also, it's not any out-of-pocket money for the city. It's not as if the city is getting dinged on their budget because of this. It's basically the school not having programming because they don't have the capacity nor there are not the safe conditions to do that programming.
Thank you. It would take the city staff some time to answer your first question, but I know we did discuss a pilot policy, which again, I advocated for when I was a counselor. Councilor Johnson has advocated for, and you have all heard the spiel before of how we need a pilot policy to be uniform in how we treat all nonprofits. So I won't belabor that point because it comes up every time we discuss these. So with that, Drew, I don't think we can answer that question right off the bat unless Director Clavette or Planner Hamlin have that information, or City Administrator Kinrath have that information off the top of their head. And I don't see anyone jumping up to wave their hand that they do. So, Drew, we will have to get back to you on that question. Okay, any further comment on the Ecology School education waiver? City Administrator Canrath, I think there's some consensus to bring forth something for consideration to council at one of the subsequent meetings, and council can then vote on it as they see fit. Thank you. Drew, thank you for joining us tonight. If you're still on.
Good. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Council, for your consideration.
With that, we are at item D of the new business agenda, which is transit-oriented TIF district, and we're going to hear from economic development specialist Jessa Berna and also economic and planning director Denise Clavette.
Thank you, everyone. I just wanted to thank you for giving us this opportunity. Jessa will be making the presentation. She has been working really hard on this project. We've been working with Shauna Cook-Mueller, our TIF attorney expert. I just want to reiterate as we begin this presentation that this has been a long time goal of the City Council. And it ties in beautifully with supporting transit-oriented TIF. It's interesting to note that this presentation is the same evening as you got your BSOOB transit updates, so it's very, very fitting. So at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Jessa Berna, our economic development specialist, and I'm available for questions as well.
Well, welcome, Jessa. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, Mayor Doyle. Thank you, Denise. So as actually, I will share my screen to start.
We can see your screen and we can hear you.
Awesome, thank you. As Denise mentioned, we've been working on establishing a transit-oriented TIF for the last several months in earnest. We've been in discussion about developing one probably for the last year with the Economic Development Commission. We had also discussed this with the council back in March when we came to the council and gave a presentation in 3 dimensions in real life on transit-oriented and TIFs in general. So tonight I'm just going to give you a brief overview of TIFs and Saco in general, more of just a quick reminder as it does get complicated, and then discuss our next steps in terms of establishing a transit-oriented TIF for the city of Saco. So starting with understanding TIFs. What is tax increment financing? Tax increment financing is a great tool to catalyze economic development. It allows municipalities to shelter increases in valuation and avoid losses due to state and county fiscal formulas for up to 30 years. TIF revenue can fund infrastructure enhancements related to project development and project costs for both public and private projects. It's a comprehensive development program that can fund many municipal projects and enhance the economic development climate in the city. And as is the case, development programs must meet all the statutory requirements and go through this local process. What is a TIF district? The TIF district is the geographic confines of the tax increment financing, basically. Every TIF has an original assessed value, the OAV. That is basically the assessed value at the time of establishing the TIF district, which serves as a baseline, basically. So the increase in valuation is the funds that go into the TIF district itself. Development programs are created and managed locally. That is what we're looking to do right now with the transit TIF. And the applications are reviewed for statutory compliance by the state of Maine, DECD, and Maine State Housing Authority as needed. So some of the benefits of TIFs. TIFs assist in achieving economic development goals of comprehensive plans and other long-range planning documents and visioning documents as well. They attract new investment and tax dollars. They attract jobs and improve the local economy. They accomplish many significant infrastructure projects, and there's that tax shift benefit. So just for kind of a visual on the tax shift benefit, generally about 49% of every tax dollar received by the city goes to state aid to education, county taxes, and other state revenue sharing, where only 51% is maintained by the city. In a TIF district, 100% of that money is retained by the city. So there is a significant amount of revenue that can be generated and maintained, basically doubling the value of the tax dollar. So Saco's TIF districts. Saco has been using this tool for a very long time and has had a lot of success with it historically. In fact, Saco was the first community in the state to use this TIF program in Maine. We have over 1,400 acres in TIF districts in the state, and just over 100 are in our town district. We use our TIFs to fund a wide variety of development programs. We also have many credit enhancement agreements, and those are basically opportunities for some local businesses to receive a tax benefit for their being located within a TIF district. And many projects and resources have been funded through these programs over the years. We currently have about $6 million budgeted for multi-year projects from our TIF budget. So it's really a substantial chunk of change, and it's been a very successful program to date. So this slide just shows, as an example, our downtown development program. I'm not going to read through the whole list, but really what we have this slide here to show is to demonstrate the wide range of projects that can be funded in our TIF districts, particularly after they were amended back in 2018 to be more versatile and more crossover between TIF districts. So TIF districts can and do fund in Saco so many different kinds of projects, from streetscape improvements to bus shelters, GIS mapping, workforce development, environmental improvement, sewer infrastructure, capital costs, underground utilities. The list goes on and on. So transit-oriented TIFs. As I mentioned, we are looking to establish a transit-oriented TIF in Saco to reap some more added benefits from our successful TIF program in the city. Transit-oriented TIFs are similar to other TIFs. There are a few differences which I'd like to call out. First of all, as is the case with transit-oriented TIFs, this is also true for downtown TIFs, which we have as well. They are exempt from some of the limitations of other TIFs in terms of they do not have a cap on the total acreage that can be contained within them, nor do they have a cap on the valuation that can be captured by them. So this allows them basically to be larger or smaller, just to have some more flexibility in terms of their size. They're less constrained in that way. All of the normal costs that are eligible in a TIF district are also eligible in a transit-oriented district. So there's nothing you can't do in a transit-oriented TIF that you could do in another kind of TIF. And lastly, transit operating costs for new and expanded services are only eligible in transit-oriented TIF districts. So this is an added expense that the city will be able to fund in the transit-oriented TIF that is not available to us in any of our existing TIF districts. So this slide before you, you'll see a map and some data here. I would mention it is hard to see this map, and there is a larger version of this map in your packet. So feel free to look at that, and I can pull that up once we're done with this presentation. But this right here is our proposal that we've discussed with the Economic Development Commission on our proposed transit-oriented TIF district for the city. Just to kind of give you a little context of what this means and looking at this map. So that blue outline indicates basically the eligibility boundary of the TIF district. So parcels in that area are eligible to be included. They basically represent being within 500 feet of any transit service and within half a mile of an existing transit stop. I'll also mention that the language does say existing or planned transit routes, so we were able to capture some of the parcels out North Street. And the proposal is basically the yellow lots, and they are basically some of the parcels that we've identified as being mostly ripe for development within this district. I will note that transit TIFs have a tendency historically within the state to look a little different than other TIFs. You're kind of used to seeing something, and the gray areas are the current TIF districts within the city. You're probably used to seeing a TIF that's like a cohesive block of space, where transit TIFs are a little different. They are more piecemeal, just due to the restraints on being near existing or proposed transit service itself. And there's the opportunity to kind of add and remove parcels and kind of cherry pick a little more. So in our proposed district here, it's large acreage wise. It's a little over 1,000 acres, but it's only 64 parcels, as we have many large parcels throughout the Route 1 corridor in particular. And it is about 2.67% of the citywide assessment. So if you compare that to the downtown, which is 16% of the citywide assessment. So it's a larger area, but it's capturing a smaller amount. And as I mentioned, this is our proposal, which we're looking for your input on this evening. One other thing I did want to mention with that area is we have had a preliminary conversation with the state, with the ECD, and they have preliminarily given us the green light with this sort of geography for the proposed district. However, it's not set in stone, it's not a guarantee, but we have had those communications, and we'll continue to as we make any changes to that area to make sure that as we're developing this program, the area will be accepted by the state. So our next steps, we did go to the EDC to have a discussion similar to this one last Monday, the 16th, or the Monday before that. We're here tonight with the City Council. Our hope is to come to the council for first reading on December 14th with a public hearing January 4th. Final vote the 11th. Of course, this is subject to change and to the will of the council, but I wanted to throw that out there just as a proposed timeline and next steps for discussion. So this evening, we're looking for some input from the council on some of the acreage goals for the TIF, the assessed value goals, if there's a certain target or sense of what you think that should be, or any additional programs and services to fund the TOD TIF, or just have any other questions or discussions. I'll also mention that there is a list of all of the proposed parcels within the proposed transit-oriented TIF district in your packet as well. So, Denise and I are here, happy to answer any questions.
Jessica, thank you very much for that presentation and explanation of TIFs. And the only question I have right out of the gate is, can we extend the blue lines down Ferry Road to get to Camp Ellis? Camp Ellis has the ability to be a thriving economic engine for the community if we start to look at it now and start to build it out over the next areas. So if we can put that in there as part of a future economic development kind of incentivizing area, I think that would be helpful to do that. That's the only kind of thought process I have. And I think this could also help fund what Councilor Johnston was talking about earlier as part of a ride share program through Parks and Rec or through Bsab to get folks at Lord Pepperell and Phoenix who are having mobility problems with getting on the bus system. So with that, Councilor Minthorn, you have your hand raised.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I was thinking along your line of thought as well, and I'm wondering if maybe the 500-foot distance maybe should be brought in some of the areas to like 250. Make it a little narrower, like on the US 1 corridor. Maybe excluding some parcels up there, which then would allow us to keep the percentage in the relative 2.5–3% range, but pick up Ferry Road parcels, possibly pick up further west on 112 and Route 5 as well. Right now, we don't have Route 5 out there, nothing going that way. Not to say that the transit bus line might benefit from either going out Garfield or coming up Chattagee, somewhere in that area, or going further west, not knowing if the Kimball property is going to get built out, the possibility of transit serving the Kimball property, it would be helpful if we might be able to have our boundaries extended into some of those areas where we might capture some of that value as it unfolds, instead of missing it with the current footprint that we're looking at. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Minthorn. Jessa, just another thought with the potential change in the 5-year outlook with the Department of Transportation Exit 36 study. Would we want to take the blue line and incorporate the area right below Hillview Heights into the Ramada Inn area to be a focus area as part that might become a part of a parking ride system there?
Yeah, I would. Let me answer that question. I also wanted to, if I may, go back to some of Councilor Minthorn's points. I would note that on that map, that blue line isn't is what is eligible, kind of what parcels are within there. So in order for a parcel to be eligible, and actually Mayor Doyle, this speaks to your point a little too, there would have to be existing or planned transit service. So for example, going down towards Ferry or Camp Ellis at this point would not be permitted because there isn't, to my knowledge, a plan for transit to go down that area. However, if there was a plan for transit to extend down that area, then that area would become eligible and could be added to a transit-oriented TIF down the line. But there does have to be existing or planned transit service there. We have extended parcels on that map down Route 112 because, as you mentioned, as a result of the planned park and ride and the turnpike exit, exit 36, I think, there is a plan for transit to go there. So in that map, you'll see there is the 351 North Street to be proposed in the district, as well as across the street, the Ramada Inn and a few other parcels right around that area.
Thank you for
and if
that.
I could add just real quickly on the 250 versus the 500, the issue with just limiting it to 250 from a corridor is that if you take a look at some of the parcels along Route 1, 250 basically gets you right behind the automobile dealer. So in other words, anybody in the property behind it, which is a developable part of it, would never be considered a part of a TIF if we ended up going 250 feet. And so the fact that it's 500 linear feet and we're actually arguing with the state, not arguing, presenting our case with the state, and they've actually understood it, that we can actually go further than the 500 because, for example, 500 really gets you into some of the developable potential projects that are behind the dealerships that will be 500 linear feet anyway. So we want to actually go from 500 to 1,000 because we don't want to bifurcate the parcels in valuation and in the ability to develop. And give you another example, the parcels that are, the clear parcels that are directly across from the Cascade intersection, for example, are primarily residential for the first X amount of feet. And then there's the developable property. So if we went 500, we would basically get nowhere. And so there's the case in point for doing that. We're very mindful of, and the acreage was, trust me, when we first drew the map, we don't even want to know the acreage we landed at. We had to actually like pare it back because we have a lot of acreage. And so we took all of the parcels that are actually on the market and we disregarded many of the parcels that could potentially have some developable assets to them, but we didn't want to put them all in the TIF district. That once you develop a TIF district, 2 years down the road, we have more land, we amend it, add more parcels, amend it, remove parcels. It's pretty simple when it comes to that.
Thank you, Director Clavette. Councillor Copeland.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councilman Thorne, for bringing up the Camp Ellis. Oh, wait, Mr. Mayor, you did that. The Camp Ellis, community in terms of transportation. We actually do have transportation down here. We have trolleys that go by all the time in the summer. So they come down ferry, they go down to Camp Ellis, and then they shoot out towards Old Orchard Beach. So we do have transit down here. And one of the things that we are critically in need of is a sidewalk that was initially considered, but then the Plymouth settlement came in, so the sidewalks went down that way, down Bayview to the beaches. But the piece from Bayview to Camp Ellis is routinely used for walking and carriages and so forth. And I know the mayor and city administrator are aware of it. They're a neighbor of mine, 2 doors down on the other side. She was walking her dog on a leash. She got down by Ferry Lane. A landscaping truck came by and killed her dog on the end of the leash when she stood there. And they didn't notice, they just kept on going. So we really, that's not the first thing that's happened here. There's been dogs killed like nobody's business out here. It's, not only just a raceway, but there's nowhere for people to walk. Now, I've spoken with the city planner about this, and he was the one that was part of the communication about, or the decision-making process to, like I say, the sidewalk was originally designed to come all the way down Ferry, but it diverted down Bayview because The infrastructure was happening down there, and the developer was paying for this, that, and the other thing. So it's really important. And if we can get a TIF district down here and get that kind of thing going on, maybe that could help support this sidewalk down here that is desperately needed. I've talked to the traffic and safety people, and I've been trying to figure out how can we do this to keep people and kids and animals safe. And so seeing that sidewalks come in on this TIF has my attention big time. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor Copeland. City Administrator Canarath.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to add on to that. Councilor Copeland's concerns are very valid, and we did receive the same communications about some of the horrible things happening out there. But just for the public's knowledge, and just to put out there, that the city does take this very seriously. However, that is a state road, and so as far as the construction of a sidewalk there, that is more in the hands of the state DOT than it is with the city. So that's I just wanted that to be out there for the public, that we take this very seriously, but it is not a city road. And we do have that piece to work with DOT on, as far as if they wanted to have a sidewalk there.
Thank you, City Administrator Canarath. Director Clavette.
A point taken about establishing a TIF district. I think it would be a stretch to add this to the existing transit TIF-oriented TIF district. But if the guidance from this council this evening is to proceed with a transit-oriented, but also to pursue a new TIF district for the business area of the Camp area, which provides a lot of business growth, whether it's the waterfront and what have you, we could develop a new TIF district, X amount of acreage, and then you can tie in the sidewalks, the infrastructure improvements, and in essence, mirror the development program that exists for all of the amended projects that we have. And that's something actually pursue. As a matter of fact, like rapid fire, but we could potentially get this TIF district in and into the state. If the council would like to see us do that, we could get in by their projected deadline and have that in for this year and then going forward. So I just want to throw that out there. I just don't want it to derail the transit oriented, because it would be a stretch to connect that. But it would not be a stretch to go to the EDC on December 14th and say, hey, what are your thoughts about creating an economic development district, a new one in the Camp Ellis area? And that can happen. Worst case scenario, it doesn't get developed this year. It goes into the next fiscal year. So we put the wheels in motion. So if the council chooses to guide us in that direction, happy to do that.
Director Clavette, and we could always amend down the road, as we've done with our current TIF districts, if we can line things up down the road. Thank you. Councilor Copeland.
And I don't mean to derail this situation, but City Administrator Canarath, has there been any communication with the MDOT about getting sidewalks down here?
I plan to call my state representative about it, actually, but not to my knowledge so far. But perhaps
I'll let her know.
Perhaps that's something we should open those discussions, and we can work collaboratively with that, since you'll have a seat in Augusta. Kidding, but not really. So, but we could certainly have that discussion and begin those talks.
Thank you. Touche.
Any further questions for Jessa or Denise? Jessa, Denise, again, thank you very much. Great presentation. I think Councilor Minthorn has a question, but thank you for your presentation here tonight. Councilor Minthorn.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So with respect to transit routes versus proposed transit routes, is this something we should have Tony, since he was here, maybe his people discuss some proposed routes where we might want to expand on what we've got here, or we want to try and get that in 6 months from now and that be the first amendment? I guess the question really is, what level of documentation do we need of actual service routes versus proposed routes versus seasonal routes, as Lynn was discussing out at Camp Ellis with the trolley service out there?
Right.
And how do those three pieces kind of interlay into what this document should be moving forward as first blush to Augusta?
Director Clavette.
So my quick response here, Councilor Warren, and everybody's concerns about this is, rush this. I mean, we're not pushing the deadline. I mean, if we push this off and we just do the EDC meeting on the 14th, which would in essence be everything plus potentially whatever we can resolve with the state, it'd be easy enough for us to consult with the state and say, what's our limit? What can we do? And so my recommendation would be to create the TIF district, but maybe not be ready for the meeting on the 14th, be ready for the 4th, push off the public hearing to the end of January, or when your next meeting in January. So give us time to do the research. The key here is that we want to be able to grab some of the properties that are under development right now, because their tax valuation, if we don't grab it now, if we do an amendment, if we do the TIF district 6 months from now, we may not be able to grab the assessed value that we need to grab for the new. So I would advise us to move forward with whatever acreage you decide to pursue. Move forward with that, and then buy us some time so maybe we don't come back to your meeting on the 7th, on the 14th. We basically come back to your first meeting in January and the 4th, and we push off just a handful more weeks so that we can actually get some definitive answers on the transit connection to Camp Ellis. Because if that can get tied in, that's perfect. I'm not sure that Jess and I could meet with the state and get that justification in by the 14th, but maybe we can. So our aim would be to keep it on schedule, but if we can't, we'll just push it off a handful more weeks and throw that in there. So Jessa was having connection problems, so she doesn't know what I just said, but we were just saying, Jessa, that should we just wait and the transit TIF so we can understand whether we can tie in the seasonal transportation as part of the program with the transit-oriented TIF. And I suggested that we go to the EDC with that, plus the potential for us you and me, to meet with our attorney and the state to find out if that's a justifiable added acreage. And then we can add that acreage. And then what that would mean is that we would probably wait till January 4th meeting with the council to present the complete one for the first reading, and then do the hearing later and then get it done by February. And if the council wants to do that.
I apologize for cutting out. I did want to note just on that topic with the trolley down to Camp Ellis, apologies for not recognizing that in the map and the program. I think, as Denise mentioned, us checking in with the state to determine if seasonal trolley transit service is eligible is our question. And I think that we can probably answer that quickly, but as Denise mentioned, if there's a delay on that, I think we can just push off our timeline a week or two to accommodate that. But thank you so much, Councilor Copeland, for bringing that to our attention. I think that's a great idea.
We'll do our best to keep it on schedule, but if we can't, we'll get the base done and we can amend it afterward.
Director Clavette, Jessa, maybe will we be also updating our TIF guidelines as a result of adding this additional TIF along the way?
Yes, that was one of the items that is coming for you in January. And the TIF guidelines are actually going to be more, your TIF guidelines are that you currently have are more enhancement agreements, so they will be rewritten so they have the TIF and the credit enhancement agreements. I think your TIFs, you're pretty much maxed out and you know what you want for TIFs. It's really the credit enhancement agreement components of that become problematic. At what level, how many employees, how many jobs, level of investment, what's your commitment, what's your timeline of staying here in Saco? Those are really more the CEA guidelines, and so we're in the process of putting those together. Yes, we are. Yep.
Thank you.
And you'll also get our semi-annual TIF report that we produced, the one for the end of July. We'll actually have the one done at the end of December, and we'll present that to you in January along with those guidelines.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
You're
Any
welcome.
further questions? Okay.
Thank you,
Moving on
everyone.
to item 11. Thank you, Director Clavette. Thank you, Jessa. I don't know if she's still on.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mayor Doyle.
Thank you. We are now at item 11, administrative update. City Administrator Canrath.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. An update on our senior meals program. Our Thanksgiving meal was again a success. We had over 250 residents participate. Sponsor was Saco Biddeford Savings. Approximately 50 of the meals were delivered right to residents' homes. A special thanks to Saco Food Pantry, the Golden Rooster, Don Roth, and all facility staff, Saco Police Department personnel, as well as Saco Parks and Rec staff, and of course, all of our volunteers. Thank you again for another great success. Have an RFP announcement for our wage analysis. The City of Saco seeks proposals from qualified professional personnel management consulting firms to conduct a salary market analysis and a classification of compensation study for municipal positions. Proposals will be accepted until December 18th at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Please email those to eroy@sacomaine.org. Proposals must include responses to all requirements contained within the RFP and should be labeled in a PDF RFP compensation study. For more information, please visit sacomaine.org/bids, or please speak to me here at City Hall if there are any questions. Saco Island Multimodal Bridge. The kickoff for this meeting was held on November 18th. The Planning and Economic Development Department will be sending out a communications piece, or may have already at this point, to the council and respective boards and commissions on the background of the project and our next steps. This communications piece will also include the kickoff meeting presentation so that the community boards and commissions are aware of this great opportunity for both Saco and Biddeford. We anticipate having a public engagement meeting on this project sometime in December to be scheduled. Our Public Works facility at 351 North Street, our former facility, the closing did take place for that on schedule. That transaction is now complete, and we do have funds that were transferred to us. That's the important part. So that is fully complete now. And lastly, just to note that my open office hours session will be held tomorrow, December 1st, 3 to 5 p.m. here at City Hall. Hope to see some people here with any questions, comments, complaints, or anything else they'd like to share with me here tomorrow, again, 3 to 5 p.m. At City Hall. Thank you. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, City Administrator Canrath. Councilor Copeland.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for that update, City Administrator Canrath. Because it's my last meeting and I won't be here to say it, I want to say it now. And I've mentioned it a little bit before, but I want everyone to consider when that multimodal thing comes out, that it's 90% Biddeford and it's like 10% Saco. So don't split it halfway. Let them pay the lion's share and let us pay an equitable share. So just please keep that in mind.
Thank you, Councilor Copeland. Any other questions for City Administrator Canrath? Seeing no other questions, City Administrator Canrath, thank you very much. We are now at item 12, council discussion and comment. Any council discussion and comment? Councilor Copeland.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The BPAC folks, that's Bike and Ped Advisory, are always on the ball. And so they have gotten me the information about their update in a fashion that I can read it. So here it is. BPAC is a council committee formed in the early fall of 2019 with 10 to 15 individuals participating. The mission of the committee is to support and encourage a bicycle and walking friendly community, which provides safe, convenient, and enjoyable active transportation for all ages and abilities. Some of the committee's past activities have been with the help and approval of Saco's Traffic Safety Committee, Saco Public Works and MDOT, a variety of bicycle awareness signs have been installed in many locations throughout the city this past fall. They've also initiated Cranksgiving, of which I was a part. It was wicked fun, which organized a small group of volunteers to bicycle from the Parks and Rec Department on Franklin Street to Hannaford Supermarket to purchase non-perishable food items to be donated to the Saco Food Pantry. The group was able to deliver almost 50 pounds of goods and $100 in contributions. Involved were, from little kids to middle school kids to moms. Bob Hamlin, our city planner, was there. It was great. It was just a few of us, but it was really a wonderful effort. Unfortunately, the pantry was closed, but we had some angels that brought the donations to them the next day. Let's see, working with the Saco PTO, Saco Police, and the Department of Public Works to develop youth programming like a walking school bus. Working to have the city of Saco designated as a bicycle-friendly community to encourage tourism and economic development. That sounds simple, but there's a whole circle of things that need to be completed and ticked off to get that designation. It's quite something, and we would be it would be very valuable to our community, I think, to have that designation. Working with the Saco Parks and Rec Department to make use of and develop programs for 15 to 20 bicycles acquired through a grant awarded to the city. I guess about 5 years ago, Senator Chanette worked on that project, and I've seen 12 of the bikes. They're over off Lund Street in the building there, and they rather dusty, certainly need, a little bit of upkeep, but we've got bikes and we've got kids who need bikes. And so we're trying to figure out how a program could work. So that's in the works. We're working with the Parks and Rec. One of the things is that they, like we talked about earlier, they have that online payment system. So people could register and become a member of the Parks and Rec thing, and then, put a deposit on the bike or whatever, and then just borrow the bike and bring it back. That helps keep track of who has the bikes. And but we're still working out some logistics because Parks and Rec doesn't have staff on the weekends when this would be happening. So it's they're working towards it. So the next thing they're working on is the Bicycle Coalition of Maine to promote their campaign to slow me down in the city. I think there's a poster or a banner up by the cemetery on the intersection of Ferry Road and Old Orchard Road, and others. Also working with the city departments to find ways to improve pedestrian and bicycle safety on busy streets like Ferry Road, Industrial Park Road, and Atlantic Avenue. So those are all things that are being talked about. They were seemed to me to be very hopeful about that study that's being done for that multimodal bridge, where the area of consideration was only like one block in on Main Street, but if we can get them to extend it and do something down Main Street for bicycles, that's something that's that we're talking about. And that's it for that one. And I have my letter of resignation that I'd like to read. May I, Mr. Mayor?
You can read it now, but you're not resigning now, and you'll be given an opportunity to do so on the 7th.
Okay. That's cool.
Any other council discussion and comment?
Well, could I also talk about my replacement, Mr. Mayor? Okay. Well, I know that the charter is such that the city council will be voting on my replacement. So all the other wards will be deciding what happens in this ward without direct voter input. And that's very unfortunate. I don't like it. I don't think anybody likes it, but it is what it is. We have the glitch in the charter, and we're going to move this forward. But I really feel strongly that this position should be filled with a woman. I think our city council should reflect our community, and one woman with 6 men does not reflect our community. And I think that it's reasonable to want the person who replaces me to be similar in many of the ways that the voters voted for me. So there's a person that's going to be running, and she has my full endorsement, and it's Andrea Stark. She lives in Ward 4. She is an incredible advocate for, I wanted to talk to Councilor Johnston about this, an incredible advocate for affordable housing. She bicycles, she does all the, outdoor things. She appreciates that. She and I went for a walk through Ferry Beach State Park together, and there's just a lot of similarities in our values. And I really think that she would be the right person to do it. The work that she does, she's an attorney, and the work that she does has to do with helping people stay out of foreclosure. And so what I'm trying to say is that she's empathetic to people. She is a woman. She has that perspective of a woman that is indescribable to men. But clearly we're different, and we have that. So she has my full endorsement, Andrea Stark, and probably be getting phone calls and emails and so forth. But I spent a lot of time with her. I actually tapped her on the shoulder for this. She wasn't looking for it, but she is in my view, the perfect woman that's not already involved in something else that they'd have to resign to do this. We have a lot of strong women in Ward 4, but she's youthful. She has kids who've gone through TA. Her husband is a local artist. He paints natural things. And I think that she, with her respect for the environment, her empathy for people, her understanding of finances, because when she does bankruptcies and credit work and things like that, and she does it on a national level, I think that's an important piece. So she is, good at budget time. And she's an attorney, and she can advocate, she can speak well, and I think that you would do a very good service for my constituents if you chose her. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor Copeland. Any other council discussion and comment? Seeing no further council discussion and comment. Moving on, there are no executive session items for tonight. So therefore we are at item 15, adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Councilor Minthorn, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Archer. Any discussion? A roll call vote. Councilor Archer?
Aye.
Councilor Purdy?
Yes.
Councilor Gunn?
Yes.
Councilor Copeland?
Yes.
Councilor Minthorn?
Yes.
Councilor McPhail?
Yes.
And Councilor Johnston?
Yes.
Motion to adjourn passes 7-0 at 9:03 p.m. Thank you, everyone, for a great evening full of vibrant discussion. And all of you, I wish you all and your families very, very safe upcoming months and holiday season. And also be well. And let's all please remember to wear a mask and follow the social distancing guidelines so that we can all get out of this together and then come back and be in person together and do events. Shopping Small Saturday was not the same as it was last year that I participated in, but it was a great effort put on by the Saco Main Street organization and so many volunteers. And thank you for all of that. So Let's all try to do our part and be well and stay safe. Thank you all. Have a great evening.